Thirsty Banks. That's a document that has been authored by Dr. Richmond Atuahene and Isaac Kofi Edji. We're privileged to be joined by Dr. Richmond Atuahene, who's a banking consultant. He'll be telling us more about this particular, research or this particular paper that they've put together. Dr. Atuahene, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners.
Great. So for those of us who do not understand, briefly tell us what this is all about. What's the challenge? I mean, the cash reserve ratio increases. What's it really? How does that impact us?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to possibly explain the whole concept of this cash ratio. The cash ratio, reserve ratio, or what we call cash ratio, are one of the policies of the four policies normally used by central banks to tame inflation or to anchor inflation, at the same time ensure stability of currency. And Ghana has been using it since independence. And even in 1964, it was one of the tools that were used by those then Nkrumah's government. But 1988, during the financial sector reform, Ghana decided to go what we call indirect monetary policy controls. And these are the tools that is used in that. We have the reserve ratio, the open market operation used in treasury businesses, and then we have the repo, the repurchasing agreement, where banks can take their treasury bills or bills to be rediscounted or purchased and then puts the bank in liquidity. And then we have the rediscounting. Rediscounting is that if a bank has got a treasury bill, you take it to central bank. If you in cash, they would discount it and give you money. All these policies are meant to tame inflation. Tame inflation, at the same time to ensure stability of the cedi or the currency. We've been doing it for a long time. In 2025, at least, there were two significant policies. We had the primary reserve, that was 9%. Banks were required to leave 9% of physical cash. 9% of your total deposit was lodged with Bank of Ghana. It doesn't earn you any interest. It acts as a buffer for the bank. And also at the same time, it acts as a control of inflation. In the same year, 2025.
As in 2005 or 2025? Because we are now in 2024.
No, I'm talking about 205.
Yes,
in 205. I'm giving you the brief history about that.
Sure, go ahead.
In the 2205, we had a 9%, and then the Bank of Ghana introduced what we call primary reserve at 35%. Because at that time, inflation was getting out of control. So they needed to mop up the cedis, the various cedis that the banks have collected, to lock them up so that you can control the inflation and also stabilize the cedi. The one that has happened recently in April, I think what governor did was to use the same methodology to control inflation. But the only caveat that was that 50.6 billion worth of bonds, which has already been restructured in 2023, was included in the total deposit. And then they took the total deposit from 2020 to 224 billion. And by that, they also did the higher reserve ratio, meaning that if a bank who has 10 billion restructured out of his deposit, that bank has already taken a first whammy. And then you add it to the requirement that instead of that, I will add it if you don't give a loan. Your loan deposit ratio is not 50% or that. I'm going to tackle you with 15%, then 20%, and then 25%. All that we're saying is that the paper is just addressing that. Maybe it was an oversight. They should have actually taken out the restructured bond. The reason being is that the restructured bonds are customers' deposit. Let me remain and say it here and now and then. Banks do not have their own deposit. So when you restructure the debt, the bonds, you restructure customers' deposit, which the bank has structured to buy the bonds. So that is the first whammy that I think the governor, I don't know, he should have taken it out and then calculate these ratios on the 180 billion instead of 224. But if you, from the look of things, they took the 224 and started looking at your loan deposit ratio and put in these ratios. And another area that I think governor should have also taken consideration, we have been on non-performing trajectory from 50%, as the governor said, we are in 24. And the credit and he said the same thing, that credit has declined from 29% to 5%. And the correlation between the non-performing and decline reflects in the higher non-performing. Simple. Banks are having problems to recover loans. That leads to the non-performing, which is higher non-performing. Instead of we addressing the non-performing, we are now saying that don't give more money to business, because once you take the higher cash reserve ratio, you are restricting them to give money to the private sector. But however, the consequences of it is that the government and the central bank created another enabling environment for them to buy treasury bills all along. So they have what we call lazy banking. Instead of lending the money to the private sector to grow the economy, they were buying the treasury bills. And they were buying it at the cost of they started at 33%, and now it has dropped. I'm told it's dropped to about 27%. Even that one, it is wrong, reasonably high for the government. Because if we don't take it, by the time we get out, the private sector would have gone. Okay. There will be no money for private sector, and the economy would have gone. That is how we managed to put up this paper based on the data. And furthermore, there is an empirical evidence or theoretical evidence by His Excellency. His Excellency has published a book. His Excellency Dr. Bawumia, in 2010, published a book, and he made a statement, and I want to read a statement for everybody to hear what he said about this higher non-reserve. He said, higher level of non-reserve is a legacy for high fiscal deficit. And also it becomes a captured market for financing deficit. This is what I'm quoting from His Excellency Dr. Bawumia, the Vice President. What Dr. Bawumia is saying is that if you don't take care and you have higher levels of reserves, it becomes an easy way to finance your deficit. And if you remember, we are supposed to finance it by 61 billion this year, and all is about treasury bills. So if you create a captured market at central bank, then it means if you don't take it, that money can be used in financing the budget deficit. So we have to tread cautiously. We have to tread.
Okay, but Dr. Atuahene, have you also considered something? And I'm just looking at your own paper, and you talk about. I mean, I look at page 6. You talk about, the ratios, for instance, the 2024 ratios, and you admit banks with a loan to deposit ratio above 55% will have to meet a cash reserve ratio of 15%. Banks with a loan to deposit ratio between 40 to 55 will have to meet a cash reserve ratio of 20%, and banks with loan to deposit ratios below 40% will be required to meet a cash reserve ratio of 25%. Here, don't you see the central bank actually saying, for those banks that do not lend more, they must have a higher cash reserve ratio. So in effect, if you lend more, you have a lower cash reserve ratio. Is it not enough incentive to lend to the private sector that you say will be hugely affected?
Thank you very much. When you take your view, you're correct. But you see, you're not taking into consideration a bond of 50 billion, which has already been restructured. And again, you're not taking to the trajectory. What I mean by trajectory level is that the way non-performing is going, and it is not the doing of the banks. The banks are not lending. Let me give you the reason why they are not lending to the private sector. Number one, what we call the microeconomic instability. We have higher inflation, higher depreciation, nuisance taxes, high operational cost. All these things are affecting the banks. So if you say that lock 20%, and don't forget, these reserves at Bank of Ghana do not attract any interest. Let me repeat this. They are interest bearing. On interest bearing, it doesn't earn you interest. But if a bank has collected 10 billion and you say, keep 20% with me, you are not paying me interest. Meanwhile, the bank would have to pay the customer the certain interest for the money he has got. So taking it from the interest even analysis, that is why in the other jurisdiction, inflations are down, you have reserve at only 5%, so that the banks can have 95% to do what they want to do. But what he has done, if you take the DDEP, the losses there, what I've said, that is the normal policy that has been used. It's been used all along. And I can assure you, it has been used since 1957. I'm not talking about that policy, because that policy, they didn't have this debt restructuring, and they didn't have non-performing trajectory. So if you let them have more money, they can do that. But currently, banks are refusing to go there because they are not recovering as they're supposed to be.
Yes, but that's, I mean, yes, go ahead. Just make your point before I come in.
So what it means is that if I decided not to go to treasury bills, you have reduced my performance in treasury bills market, then you're telling me that the little that I have got should go into the little that you've taken and is left with me, I should go to lend it to the private sector. No prudent banker, let me repeat, no prudent. I've been in a bank for nearly 40 years. If I'm the CEO, I would always tell them that be very cautious lending. Maybe you can look at the existing customers, but I wouldn't like to expand and end up with higher non-performing, which would have impact on the solvency or on the capital adequacy.
Great. So let's come to that point. Have you also considered that for the central bank and for government as well? You've talked about the impact on the private sector, but have you also considered the fact that the private sector also would need some of these funds in their expansion? And so if at all costs, I mean at all times, or at most times you are looking at your interest, you're saying, this is a risky market, let me go do business with government. Some way, somehow, government should also look at a way of pushing you to do what can actually lead to the growth of the economy by using what you've called this monetarist approach in solving the problem.
Well, from that angle, you're right. But you should also, you see, we fight inflation from two angles. We have the monetary tools and we have the physical tools. What we are trying to advocate is that why don't we look at our physical side? And if you remember, one of the statements that the IMF made when they came, they are worried about our physical side. They are not too much worried about the financial side, the monetary side, because the physical side is that you have a budget which is being currently spent and spent and spent. You don't see concrete reduction in government expenditure. If, as we look at the monetary policy, and government was also cutting his coat according to his shirt, I am sure the two will balance. But if you only look at the monetary side and say the bank should suffer double whammy, where the economic environment is not good, you're supposed to lend. I mean, even when the business environment is not conducive, I don't think banks will want to expand their credit. No bank, because currently, if I tell you, because I've spoken to a lot of them, if I tell you, because the write-up was based on interviews, we realized that they are torn between either you lend to the private sector and higher non-performing. Whereas, you see, the government should balance this equation. People don't talk about the physical side. It takes two to tango, but you can't take one to tango. The tango should have between the physical side, reducing your cost. I mean, that is the normal business. You look at it so that when you even implement this, people would appreciate it.
Okay. Well, this morning we're speaking to Dr. Richmond Atuahene, who is a banking consultant, and he, together with Isaac Kofi Minta, authored, that report about thirsty banks which we're having, and they advised that we have to be careful. But I mean, Dr. Atuahene, you've talked about, the fiscal, the monetary. Yeah, but you'd admit the Bank of Ghana in charge of monetary. So this is what they can do. So per what they've done, you say, if this is what you want to do and you want people to lend to the private sector, you say that is not bad. So what's really the problem then?
The problem is that, you see, you have just restructured the deposit, extended the repayment period to 2031. Mm-hmm. Customer deposit. Let me repeat. The bonds that were restructured are not the bonds. The banks don't own it. It's customers. You're telling that I have restructured your bond, and at the same time, I am going to let you have a higher loan performance, loan deposit ratio. What we are saying is very simple, and I hope somebody is listening. Take that 50 billion out of the 224 and then begin to do what you want to do. Other than that, they have suffered when you were supposed to give them 19%. You have reduced it to 9.1. I mean, the lost interest from that.
Okay. So if I get you clearly, Dr. Richmond Atuahene, your concern is the addition of the restructured amount. If that is removed and total deposits at 180 billion, you don't have a problem? Hello, Dr. Atuahene, can you hear me? I think the issues of connectivity. Yes, Dr. Atuahene, you're back. I was just asking you that if I get you clearly, you're saying that because of the inclusion of the 50 billion restructured funds, that's where the problem is. But if that was
removed, where I have my problem.
If that was removed, you don't have a problem with the policy.
Because that policy has been used continuously since 1957. And it will be used continuously till thy kingdom come. Because it is one of the major tools used in stabilizing the currency. And you know, the currency, I read from your side, the currency has depreciated. You said it's about close to 10%. If it is not tamed, we may end up a currency which is of no use. So for me, I am not against the policy. And after the literature says that is the policy that has been using. But I want them to sit and reflect and address that issue. And again, what I want them also to do, to ensure that they are helping the banks to have strategy to reduce the non-performing. Because you see, according to literature, Levent and Valencia, 2018, he works with the IMF. Any country on this earth whose your non-performing crosses 20%, your banking sector is in crisis. I didn't say it. It's a literature. I've given you the friends.
You're suggesting that our banking sector is in crisis?
Yeah, because you see, currently, if you heard what the governor said in February ending when he did the MPAC, there is a statement he made. It is only for those who are researchers. He said the financial soundness of the bank is mixed. Mixed means that some are positive, some are negative. So when it is like that, in research, we say it is mixed. And I'm going to tell you the mix, why he say it, because what he said it, because some of you don't understand what he said. Profitability, currently, if you look at the results that is being published, it stands positive. Now, let's just go to insolvency. Even 3 days ago, a bank, one of the reputable Ghanaian banks, is going to look for capital up to 600 million. Most of the banks, I don't want to mention their name. Some of them has gone already to seek 1 billion. There is a solvency crisis. Governor said, out of the 23, half will not need recapitalization. So if you use it, and half would need, so that goes into the negative. Then you go to non-performing, because asset review is part of the measure. It's no good. So that is why he said the financial policy, the financial soundness measures are mixed. And I'm telling you why he say it is mixed.
Okay.
Solvency is a challenge now. Non-performing is also a challenge. Liquidity is also possible a challenge. So it is not a good time. We are not at good times. If we are in good times, all things being equal, ceteris paribus, I will say that this policy is what has been used and should be continually used. But the caveat is the rising non-performing, and at the same time, the restructured bonds. That is all that I'm saying.
We'll come back to you shortly, because we've been joined by the president of the CEO of the Ghana Association of Banks, John Ewa, is on the phone. He wants to make a contribution. Mr. Ewa, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. So you have a contribution to make. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Oh, we've lost John Ewa. We'll try and get John Ewa back on the line, because this morning we're having a conversation about a paper that was authored by Dr. Richmond Atuahene and our own Isaac Kofi Adjei, who's a data analyst here with the Joy News team, which actually warns the Bank of Ghana on how its cash reserve ratio increases and how it could, impact the banking sector, how it could impact even the private sector, and by extension the financial sector. But let's get back to John Ewua, who's CEO of the Ghana Association of Banks. Yes, Mr. Ewua, you say you want to make a point. Please go ahead.
Yes. I must put on record that I have not read Dr. Atuahene's paper.
Okay.
I know my people have done some work on it, and I'll find the time to review the work. But he obviously has spoken everything that I had an intervention, whatever intervention that I wanted to make. He may have covered almost everything. The point is, we have a view that maybe the monetary policy is overcompensating for the fiscal, and the cost to that is that as a country, we are fighting high lending rates. The banks don't like it. The customers don't like it. But this policy has that potential of increasing lending rates again. Because as Dr. Atuahene rightly said, if I take your deposit of 100 Ghana, I pay interest on that deposit 100 Ghana. If central bank takes 25% of that deposit, the effective cost of that deposit is not maybe the 10% the bank promised you, but maybe it's maybe 14%. That 14% is going to add to the cost of loan. And again, we are in a country where non-performing loan, for every 100 Ghana cedis that as a banking group we give, we lose 24 Ghana cedis. When depositors give their money to the bank, they give 100, they want 100 back. But when the bank gives that money to a customer, the potential that we lose 24 Ghana cedis of it is a big problem. And until we solve that problem, we cannot cure the financial problems that the country is going to, particularly when to do with lending to the private sector. How do banks aggressively lend to the private sector when they know very well from the get-go that they are going to lose money? Meanwhile, they are promising the depositor you have full sight of your money. So it's more, nobody will fault the central bank for taking action, but the point is that there is cost to that action, and that cost is a cost to the customer and a cost to the financial intermediation's ability, like banks' ability to do proper financial intermediation. The way it is now, lending rates where it is 30 to 35% is not going to come down. It is not, because the cost of providing that lending has just been jacked up by this policy. And that is all that I wanted to highlight, and Dr. Atuahene had obviously handled that.
Yes, but you also would agree, even though you say you've not read it, you know that Dr. Atuahene admits that for institutions that lend more, that give more loans, your cash reserve ratio is lower. So 50% and above, cash reserve ratio is 15%. Between 40 to 50% loans to deposit ratio, it's 20%. And below 40 is 25%. It's only telling you that a lot of banks have found ways of not lending to the private sector individuals and are resorting to the investment in government securities. The central bank is only telling you they want you to lend to these areas, and that's why if you are lending, you have a lower cash reserve ratio. Is that not encouraging enough? I mean, the challenges that you've talked about, that deals with it, doesn't it?
I think
the banks are in the business of lending.
Mm-hmm.
We are in the business of financial intermediation. That is our core mandate. So it is not in any bank's interest not to lend. What is the lending rate? Lending rate is around 31 to 35%.
Mm-hmm.
The highest you can get on a government instrument is about 30%. So if you want really real value for your shareholders, you go for the highest rate. Is that not the case? So why would the bank be giving the money to maybe government securities and not to the private sector? If you look at the banks in Nigeria, the banks in Cote d'Ivoire, the banks in Abidjan, Togo, and I'm talking about the sub-region, It is about 50 to 60% of the banks in Ghana operate in those countries. And we don't have that problem in those countries. Why? Because the environment is right for lending. Cote d'Ivoire, Cote d'Ivoire has a non-performing loan ratio of less than, I believe it's less than 10%. The last I checked in Nigeria, it is something around that. So you don't have to force the banks to lend. It is their business to do the lending. So you cannot compel banks to lend in an environment where they lend to lose money and depositors are promised a full return for their money. Let me give you a little mathematics. If you give your money to the bank has insurance on it, deposit insurance, and then you have 25% cash reserve. You have non-performing loan of 24%, and because the bank is going to use your money to trade, and they are going to lose 24% of it, or roughly 24% of it. And they have cash in branches. Though you gave us 100 for 3 months, you can walk into the branch and say, I need money, and the bank must be able to provide. So by the time you put all this together, 50% of the money you get to the bank is not available for lending. How do you expect this bank to operate, make money, return to shareholder, and also do proper financial intermediation? It is a very simple mathematics.
Yes,
so if there is something else we need to fix as a country, let us fix that thing and not overlayer the banking system because maybe in 1 year the banking system posted a certain result when, in substance, those results are just going to capitalization. So let us not overburden or, put so much stress on the banking system because we want to fix the country. The banks cannot fix the country. There is a lot of other things that must change, the banking system being part of those things. But if every time we need to go to the banks to increase, we'll get to the point where the banks will have almost next to nothing to lend. Half of the deposits we are talking about, a quarter of it, is in the debt operations, the debt exchange we did. Over 50 billion is in that. Meanwhile, we are calculating loan to deposit ratio, including that 50 billion. Where is it? It's not available to the banks.
Let me bring in Dr. Atuahene. You wanted to make a point.
That is what I wanted.
Yes, don't go yet. Hold on. Just make your point, Dr. Atuahene. Then I probably would ask my next batch of questions because all of you have talked about non-performing loans. It's important we also address that particular issue briefly before we wrap it all up. Yes, Dr. Atuahene, you wanted to make a point.
I think I want to thank my brother, my junior brother, for just agreeing with what we have said. And I like the way my brother John Ewa has explained it. Especially most of us think that the reserves is just reserve. Money's locked there. Bank of Ghana don't pay any interest on it. Meanwhile, the banks has to pay for the interest. So if you do effective pricing, as John said, you are going to hike the lending rate. And it's a simple calculation. Anybody, John was a managing director. He faced that challenge when he was a managing director. So if you are not being part in that industry, like I have been in the industry, when we are talking, you say, oh, this one is nothing. But in the bank, it hits them hard.
Okay.
Immediately you do that, you curtail their ability to lend to the private sector.
Great.
And in an environment where non-performance is jerking up, the banks are not sorry to say, are not just robots. They also have to think about their shareholders. So
exactly.
They decided that.
But Dr. Atuahene, hold on a minute on that point. What are the causes of non-performing loans in this country?
The first one, let me tell you, I'm going to enumerate 5, which doesn't come from the bank. The banks are only part of the problem. But let me tell you, if you have higher inflation, higher depreciation, higher operational taxes, and when you have new energy prices where it cannot be predicted, where you have electricity that cannot be predicted, all these things dovetail to the non-performing. Go and read any other literature. This tells you that the micro environment also allow the non-performing to come in. There's a whole write-up on it.
I know.
But
hold on, Dr. Atuahene. You've talked about...
No, let me finish.
Okay, let me land.
Let me land. The only factor that you ask the bank that what is their contribution to this higher non-performing? If they haven't learned to say construction, government buildings or government roads, they wouldn't have it. So if you look at some of the banks, let me tell you, strategically, some of the banks in this country, they never, ever do government business, like lending to construct roads, lending to do this. No, they don't. They have said that they are strategic non-go areas. But the banks cannot say that. So some of the problem, you say that maybe the banks didn't do their due diligence very well on the projects. That is only a factor. But where the microeconomic environment is not conducive, and it is not conducive when you have inflation running like Usain Bolt, when you have depreciation within the first quarter, 10%. I mean, your planning is always thrown overboard. So that is what I'll say. It is not only the banks. They have the microeconomic environment has.
Yes, Dr. Atuahene, you've indicated also that the banks have a role to play. I mean, the literature would always tell you that the economic environment plays a role, the macroeconomic environment to play a role in non-performing loans. But you've also indicated that the banks also play a role, and the banks would also know, you're a banking consultant, you also know that in actually determining who gets what, you'd have done all your risk assessment. Even in determining rates, lending rates, you would have looked at who's considered risky and who's not considered risky. You cannot absolve the bank of any blame when it comes to non-performing loans, can you?
I have never exonerated them. What I'm saying that if you look at the variables, it is not the banks that create the microeconomic environment. Number one, we should understand the bank doesn't, if you are an importer, recently I had to buy something from Atuahene. Do you know what the man told me?
Tell me.
Immediately I pay for the money. Do you know what he did? He said, look, my brother, I have to call a Gawo man to give me dollars. Other than that, I cannot replace what you have sold to you. Why is it that? Why is it that? The instability of the currency. And it is not the banks that created it. If the government has actually adopted what I would call a serious economic diversification, like John said, in Ivory Coast, they don't depend on cocoa. You don't depend on mining, where you get little from mining. You get only 6.6 billion, you get only 863, and you clap for yourself. Now look at cocoa.
But the economic diversification that you talk about also comes with funds, comes with money. Part of it must come from the banks.
My brother, when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah started doing what he was doing, or let me even come to Achampon, which most of you didn't come to see him. Achampon, Kutu Achampon, who was executed, never borrowed from international market. But let me tell you, if I begin to tell you things he has done, you will begin to clap for him. He never borrowed.
Yes, but Dr. Atuahene, my point that I'm
coming.
Make,
let me finish.
You hold on. I'm just making a point because you talk about economic diversification. That's not in doubt. We're saying that part of these you would need funds to execute. Okay, and we're saying that part of the funds would also come from the banks. You're not disputing that, are you?
No. The banks just mobilize the deposit locally, and that is it. Let me tell you. Once, what we have forgotten is that immediately we declared that we were not going to pay external debtors in December 22. Banks that were enjoying what we called online credits from their correspondent bank, they withdrew it all. They withdrew it. So the banks could not even import on the lines. Previously, if you ask John had a line with Citibank, which John used to import and then settle later. But immediately we declare ourselves insolvent in December 22, the lines were cut off. So the banks became stuck in international finance, international trade. So you see, we should always admit that part of the problem is from ourselves. We have created it for ourselves. If we borrowed and we went to serious economic diversification, rice production, poultry, we will not be importing rice 1.2 billion. And we will not be importing poultry $700 million. We would have all these foreign currency stuck in Ghana. We should always be, the banks will only do the local lending, or they will source funds for people when they think that the economic environment is good, and then the people will lend money. I'll share one experience with you before I go. In 2021, I was looking for funding for a company who was going to do a massive poultry and value chain poultry in Brahafo. I have done all the due diligence. I met the Germans. They were ready to come in. But let me tell you what they told me. They told me that 2022 will be a crunching point for Ghana, which I myself, I didn't even know. And when they began to enumerate it to me, then I realized that we could have done better.
I think issues of connectivity. Johnny, were you still with us?
I'm there, Winston, if I may.
Yes, Johnny, briefly.
Yes, but Atuahene has enumerated some of the points that lead to a non-performing loan. But I'm going to talk about the flip side to it, which is when there is distress, that is after the loan has gone bad, how do we get our money back as banks? Loan goes bad, we have the Borrowers and Lenders Act, which entitles banks to enter execution right after default if the collateral is registered. But as soon as we start that process, we have our lawyers and the borrowers going to the main court and stopping the entire process. So a bank has a distressed asset. There is an asset to be recovered. It can take us up to 4 years. In 2008, when the financial crisis happened in America, overnight, thousands of houses were put on the market because they didn't have to go to any court. All they do is to put a foreclosure notice in front of the house. Can we do that in Ghana? No. A security man who works for me, one day, as soon as I left home, called me and said, "Oh, the electricity has run out." I said, "Oh, let me send money to you so that you go and buy." He said, "Oh, no, please don't send to my number. If you send to my number, I have borrowed, and it will consume it." I said, "If you are borrowed, why are you not paying?" So if this man goes to the bank, how is the bank able to check that and have a 360 view of this person? That this person, whether he has a supplier's credit, he hasn't paid, whether he owes rent, whether he owes family members, there is no central point of collation of a credit status of the person. So when you talk about risk profiling, we cannot do risk profiling in Ghana. Because the company that is coming to you, whether the land the company is sitting on, the business owner is owing rent, you, the lender, you don't even know.
But,
and when there is default, you have the lawyers playing you in the court. And you have judges who see the bank as an elephant trying to trample on an ant. So you have everything working against the bank. That is why we cannot recover, because the next borrower knows that when I default and I go to court, it can take 4 years. And sometimes by the time you get judgment, even execution alone can take you 2 years. And even when you are able to execute, depending on the type of asset, the asset may have deteriorated. So something, you see, every force is moving against the bank.
Okay.
When it comes to recovery. Every force. The borrower is not genuine, because from our own homes, we know that the people we work around with, even common mobile money lending, 400, 300, they are not paying.
But, John,
it's the same people who become business owners. It's the same people who come to the bank.
Okay.
And when they default, I mean, we don't have any system to have 100% view of them.
Johnny, recently...
And you say we are risk profiling who? We cannot risk profile anybody. We only do what is available to us. You go to Credit Reference Bureau, you get information banks have sent. You don't get information that creditors, other lenders have sent. You don't get information on suppliers. You don't get information from a grader, landlords. You don't get information from a land commission, maybe tenancy. You don't get anything.
Yes, but Johnny, shouldn't that be what you should be concerned? I mean, we're here explaining problems, really. But if that is a problem for the banking sector, if that's a problem for the country, shouldn't all players, and most importantly, you as banks that are affected the most, shouldn't you be leading for us to have all these people as part of the credit reference bureau? So you don't come and say, for instance, we don't know that this person owes this, he doesn't owe that, he doesn't owe that. Elsewhere, if you owe even a pin, everybody knows who you are.
And every time you have taken, a bank has done a loan, we call how do we call your cash to any ratio. They've used that to give you the facility. Meanwhile, you have other deductions that the bank has no view of. How is the bank able to know that the 50% that you have assessed is exactly? So we are taking 50% of your earnings, 50% is for your expenditure, because you've asked, what do you normally spend on? And they've done that. Meanwhile, when you take that other 50%, another 30% of it is gone. So next time, it is the bank 50% which is supposed to pay for the loan, which you will default on. So it's sometimes easy to lay the blame at the doorstep of the bank, but if you put all in one basket, you realize that the banks are actually doing almost an impossible job.
Okay.
And now, the money you are giving to us as a depositor, 25% is also not available to us.
15 to 25%.
By the time you put all this, and then when we begin to lend the 70% or thereabout, which is left to us, 24% of that, we lose it.
Now, Mr. Ua, I asked a question earlier.
Yes,
Mr. Ua, please hold on. Please hold on 1 minute, Mr. Ua, because I asked a question earlier. I asked that you've talked about the Credit Reference Bureau. You say, this is only from the banks. But I'm saying, if you as banks are concerned about the other, other institutions where these persons may have credit facilities with, which are not within the Credit Reference Bureau, what has stopped you? What has prevented you from ensuring that you're able to get all of these? Have you had that conversation? And where are you when it comes to that? My question is, have you had that conversation? So you've talked about the Credit Reference Bureau being just about the banks. You've said some people could be owing mobile money, could be owing whichever of these other lenders. But my question is, have you considered having all of these as part of the Credit Reference Bureau, so that if you mention my name, Winston Amwa, and I owe whatever, it's not just the banks that comes out, but if I have other facilities, it would all come out, so that you know at the end of the day how much it is that I'm spending in the settlement of all of these and how that is going to impact me.
Yes, I must say, in that direction, the central bank is leading the charge, the charge in that direction. There is a project that is presently ongoing to bring other credit creators to one platform, so that instead of everything, only banking system going to the Credit Reference Bureau, we will have OMCs who are giving suppliers credit to people who are going to buy fuel for free and with a promise to pay later, or BDCs who are giving oil to OMCs who are promised to pay later, which is not within the banking system. We will have a certain kind of report around all these credit originations, and then we can have somewhat a good view. I'm hoping that Greta and all these other credit originators, landlords, will all begin posting, because it is in the interest of every one of us. So, as I said, the central bank is leading the charge. I know that the work is almost concluded on that. And in the coming weeks, we may be hearing from the central bank on in that front. And then we begin getting the people who are going to take Momo, they don't want to pay. The people who are owing their landlords and they are not paying, meanwhile they are coming to the bank for loans. We begin to unravel, their credit history to understand exactly what, as a banking system, whether they deserve the credit. And then we will be fighting the non-performing, because nobody likes to just pay money. It is the consequence of not paying that leads people to pay. Even in the countries that we make as our reference point, the people in America, they don't just like paying their loans. But if you don't pay your loan, the problems you will go through, the consequence of it is what pushes them to do that.
Okay.
And gradually we need to get that into Ghana, and I'm sure the work that the central bank is doing now, we will be moving a step closer to that.
And talking about the work the central bank is doing, when did it start? When do you know it's expected to be completed, so that we know that we're dealing with this, and by this time we have a huge part of the problem solved?
I need to pick an update from the project team. Okay. I'm a member of the project. Unfortunately, I don't have the specifics around the timeline, but I know that a lot of work has already gone in.
Okay.
It's possible that maybe before half year we should have something like that in place.
Okay. All right, Johnny Wa, thank you very much. Johnny Wa, CEO of the Ghana Association of Banks. Dr. Richmond Atuahene, thank you also very much. Yes, but you want to make a point finally? If you could unmute your microphone.
Let me make a point.
Yes, go ahead.
I just received something which I want to share with you.
Please go ahead.
John has said something, and I think it's the step in the right direction. You know, we should use the Ghana card as a basis of all these things. So I will urge John to liaise with the national the national authority. What do you call them? I don't know. So that they can have an integrated system. Once you have your Ghana card and you're taking money, because you are a director or a company, your Ghana card is there, it's going to help us. So one of the former MD sent me that. I should tell them that they should look at the Ghana card integration into the system, so that we can have a keep tracking these defaulters, so that we will reduce the non-performing. That is all that I want to say.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richmond Atuahene, also for joining us. And we've been having that conversation about Thirsty Banks. That's a paper that Dr. Richmond Atuahene and Isaac Kofi Adjei put together, where they won the Bank of Ghana. You have to do a few things, right? Otherwise, we probably may have a financial sector crisis within the medium to long term. When we return after these messages, Raymond is here. He'll tell us what his thoughts are. I did this interview, so I don't get to share my thoughts. We'll be right back.
It's a perfect opportunity this Ramadan Kareem to make it an extra special season for your family and friends with Melcom. With affordable products ranging from groceries, electronics, homeware, kitchenware, furniture and more, you've got all your needs sorted. Ramadan Mubarak to our Muslim family. Terms and conditions apply. Melcom, where Ghana shops.
Are you a corporate organization, e-commerce business, individual or student looking for a trusted courier company where you can track your package and receive SMS alerts to keep you posted? At IAS FedEx, we move your documents and parcels with care to the destination of your choice. With offices across the nation, we happily deliver your package to your office or the comfort of your home. With the assurance of safety and affordability giving you peace of mind, IAS FedEx has your package in good hands. Call us on +233 501 605,000 or +233 501 631,000. IAS, licensee of FedEx.
Hey, welcome back to work.
Charlie, thanks, bro. Thanks, bro.
Malaria really knocked you down, eh?
Charlie, no joke. Hey, fever, headache, vomiting, loss of appetite. I couldn't even eat my usual fufu.
You and fufu?
How we go do it?
I hope you got tested before the malaria treatment.
Oh, yes, I did. And thanks to Malatu, I kicked out malaria one time.
Sharp. Anyway, sorry to ruin your excitement, but your boss asked of you.
Okay.
She says she has plenty work for you.
No problem, Charlie. Strength day.
You see,
When malaria strikes, take Malatu, containing Artemether and Lumefantrine. Comes in tablets and suspension for the effective treatment of malaria in adults and children. If symptoms persist after 3 days, consult your doctor. Malatu is manufactured and distributed by Ernest Chemists Limited. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Only 5 words can describe Bet Power's new boosted odds.
Odds must be crazy.
They are the biggest odds in Bet Power history.
Odds must be crazy.
Available on the home draw and away full-time market of the biggest matches each week.
Odds must be crazy.
Giving you more opportunities than ever to bet small for a chance to win big.
Odds must be crazy.
Follow the purple arrows to find them on betpower.com.gh.
Odds must be crazy.
That's betpawa.com.gh. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet responsibly. 18 years and above only. Gaming can be addictive. Terms and conditions apply.
Well. How is your good life?
Mine has been great, My entire family and I sleep under our insecticide-treated net every night, throughout the night, and wake up feeling sound every day with absolutely no mosquito bite.
My good life has been terrific. My entire family and I, we wash our hands with soap and running water before we cook and eat, and after using the toilet, we don't play with it.
When my wife was pregnant, I accompanied her to every antenatal session. She took all her medication, ate balanced diet, and gave birth without any complications. My good life has been smooth.
Let's all come aboard Good Life and live healthy and happy. Good Life, live it well. It's an everyday thing. Good Life from Ghana Health Service and partners with support from USAID.
Imagine going to your favorite wache joint and Amalia tells you, Boss, wale is finished, curry is finished, and shit or cry is finished. So that thing can pain. Now compare that feeling to having everything you want on your wache with lay, gari, and plenty shit or peche like that. Just like that Sochi wache, that's exactly what Aquaba Magic gives you. Enjoy rich Ghanaian stories like the second season of the legendary Inspector Bediako, the captivating Madame, and so much more on DSTV channel 150 and GoTV channel 102. Aquaba Magic, dear. Enjoyment and kasa. Now available on DSTV Access and GoTV Plus. Aquaba Magic, Ghana's most loved storyteller.
Coffee in your cup and joy on the set. The Super Morning Show is
everything, and when money is involved, it means that we must have a conversation. I'll get to you, Raymond, for your thoughts on this. But why don't you escape to the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel? Now you've seen the rest. It's time to see the best. The Royal Cozy Hills Hotel is the place to relax, rewind, and get re-energized. It's away from the stress of the South. Now this is what awaits you: unforgettable safari experience, amazing array of wildlife, including lions, hippopotamus, zebras, ostriches, amongst others, using our spacious and well-secured game tour vehicles or using squad bikes, water sports like jet skiing, boat or canoe rides, various family games to keep you and your family excited every day. Great tourist attraction in the Upper West region, including the Mushroom Rock, Slave Caves, escape from the south, escape to the north, escape to Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, Japa, Dubai for an unforgettable experience. Please call 0501-694280 or 0248-844463 for reservations or further inquiries.
Now we know we all have those days when you are low on everything: energy, time, cash, and even airtime and data. Well, that's why MTN Extra Time is an airtime and data service advance that actually allows you to make calls or browse the internet, or even when you have an insufficient balance, you surely can do so. All you have to do is just dial star 506 hash. Yes, star 506 hash. Go through the prompts and select the amount of airtime or data you need. It's more than simple. Doing your favorite things on MTN means you don't get interrupted when you're on low on airtime or even data. Please remember, all terms and conditions apply.
And Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited, your number one supplier of quality office essentials, equipment, and furniture at affordable prices. Now, they've introduced an online store for your shopping convenience, which means you can now shop by simply logging on to kingdomstoreonline.com without physically coming to any of their branches. It is hassle-free, and they will arrange delivery to your home and office within a reasonable time. They offer free delivery within Accra and Tama and accept payment via Momo across all networks. Terms and conditions have apply at Kingdom. Quality and affordability are their hallmarks.
Now, you're looking for a freight forwarding company to handle both your inbound and outbound shipments? If yes, look no further. IAS FedEx offers a wide variety of international freight services, which include air freight, sea freight, BS, container load and full container load, customs clearance and documentation. Our international operations link more than 200 countries, supported by extensive domestic networks in all key markets, and offer a range of fast and direct freight services to suit your needs. We have dedicated staff who have in-depth knowledge in our local customs clearance processes and procedures. IAS FedEx pre-finances freight pickers up to an agreed threshold for our clients. Terms and conditions apply. Please contact us now for free consultation on international freight services and custom clearance process. 050-160-5000 or 050-163-1000. With IAS Ghana, your freight is firmly secured.
Okay, so let's move on. Raymond, you've heard from Richmond Atuahene, you've heard from John Ewa, and I know you've read the document also.
The central bank has responsibility for market conduct survey and also prudential, what they call it, regulation of the sector. There has been times that we have questioned decisions of the central bank. I think at least I have not seen enough evidence to suggest that the more recent ones are actually going to jeopardize the sector. I believe that, at least for now, I want to think that the central bank knows what it has done wrong and right in times past. We've been through financial sector reform. We just went through a very terrible domestic detention and all the other relations. The impact on the sector will be known to the central bank. So decisions made by that central bank in seeking in tandem with prudential regulation will certainly be mindful and minded by the most recent history we have had. If not so, it will be a very strange happening. And I'm convinced that if they see that there is merit in the claims being made on this one, they can work on it. What I expect the central bank to do is equally review, like we have all seen the document, and go through the fine details of it and come to a conclusion. Do we think that we are hurting or promoting that sector? Are we hurting them in the interim? Are we going to help them in the future further? Are we going to further jeopardize the chances of growing that industry because we already know that our financial sector is on its knees. It's not thriving like many would have expected it to be. On the other side, the final conversation is an interesting conversation about performing and non-performing loans. Yes, it is the responsibility of the banks to determine whether or not Winston qualifies for a loan facility. It's also the responsibility of the banks to determine whether or not Winston is likely to use it for the purposes that it's supposed to be. It's also the reason why sometimes they make room for non-performing loans, because sometimes some things can seep through the cracks and get to the point that's supposed to be. What many in this republic expect of players in that financial sector is that no matter what they do, or no matter the roles they play, we have a prudent, proper, strong, sound, and safe system. I'm sure the people of this republic will not be able to entertain any other financial difficulty arising directly out of the conduct of the people in the sector, be it from the regulator or the players in the industry, which ends up having ordinary people being the people affected heavily by some of these practices.
Well, thank you very much, Raymond. When we return after these messages, you posted something on your Facebook wall, and it's generated a lot of controversy. People paying for others to come have a cup of coffee for those who cannot afford. But the response in relation to Ghana, Raymond, actually is a cause for concern. That many people believe that in Ghana, per their response, and you share them with even those who can afford, will go and have it. Are we no men of conscience and integrity? We talk about that.
Super Morning Show.
Usually, we get special treatment only on our birthday. But imagine getting a special package every single day. That's what AT's Daily Deals gives you. You get unique voice and data deals exclusive to you. What's even better is it's affordable, reliable, and available. Start experiencing AT's Daily Deals. Dial *533# today and every single day. When you do, you'll unlock exclusive data and voice packages valid for 24 hours. Come on, people, jump on the AT Daily Deals train. When you're with dealer now. Dial *533# now and access awesome data and voice deals only from AT. Life is simple.
Dive into a new era of news consumption with myjoyonline.com, your go-to destination for cutting-edge journalism, giving you the most credible stories from business to politics and from sports to entertainment. Myjoyonline.com introduces an upgraded news website meticulously designed to empower you with an enriched browsing experience like never before. Experience the future of news browsing with myjoyonline.com.
Coffee in your cup and joy on the set. The Super Morning Show is always the best bet on Joy 99.7 FM.
Heal culture for a lot of the,
Why do you start with Joseph Hill?
Once a while you remember that in those days,
there's an original name.
There's an original name.
Yes,
Joseph
yes.
Hill.
Even for a second, when you said Joseph,
oh, my Afro days. Last time, my social studies teacher Edward Hedoti said, "Tell Kojo Youngson I saw you in Afro," which is true. In those days,
Afro,
yeah.
It's pretty much inconceivable that could have been your situation.
It is. Some years ago, it happens. Now that you can see your future in me.
No.
Do all that you can do with your hair.
With respect. yeah. This one that you are recruiting people's future into your. Yes, please leave within your reign. The keratin in your hair is not the same as mine. The supply is not the same. It's not every man that's bound to go through the stages of baldness. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Can you see the M shape?
Do not have the same.
Can you see the M shape in your hair?
Oh, that is where my this thing ends. That's where my design ends. It's a very nice design. As my role model Chroma had. It's the same system that we are running. Yes, and it doesn't mean anything. I've seen very old people in this republic today, some inching towards their 90s, who have hair on their heads.
Oh yes,
yes.
I've seen a lot of people like that too.
So your predicament cannot be a collective predicament.
J. Kufuor still has hair.
Yes,
so that's not a big deal.
Yeah. So I'm looking up to the likes of John Kufuor.
Oh, but
yes. I'm fashioning.
But you must begin to look my way.
You see the evidence inevitable, eh?
It's inevitable. I mean, eventually you'll get there. You see, the good thing is that yours is starting at the front, not at the back. Because at the back it eats faster.
Okay.
It eats faster. By the time you realize you're gone.
I would like to just complete the shape and make it circular so that completing chroma style.
That's even worse.
Oh no! I mean, and there's man who has been keeping his hairline for God knows how long.
No, when it happens,
and there's man who started going bald when he was at Legon.
No, when it happens like that, you don't actually use Sakura.
No, NSCS, he and Duke Opoku Mensah too.
See, let me tell you
Duke
something.
at 22 had the hair of 49.
Look, let me tell you something.
At 20 something, now he lost almost everything.
Let me tell you something. I actually bought one of these creams. They say, oh, if you use it on your hair will grow.
Yeah, it will grow.
And I called the guy and I said, Masa, na dia na uye hwine mfu. I say, boss, machana hwine uye ne sanam so me tell you Sakura. I said, I was so adeng. The thing you want the hair to grow, then you are still doing Sakura. The long and short is that for the likes of Duke and Favor Nunu and Co.
Yeah.
When they go to the barbering salon, they just do the side and side because they know what their future is. Because the more you take off the hair, the likely you are to go bald. They say Fentu is an exception, but Fentu is also like that.
Favor Nunu also did some trick. He was pretending that when he goes to the barbering shop, say don't touch the top.
Yeah, because if you touch the top,
so they only clear somewhere around.
Don't come back.
No, don't touch the top.
Okay.
So it's almost like some. But I mean, very soon, there's innovation leading in the way of hair transplant. It's now expensive. I'm hoping it will be cheaper. Young men may not have to suffer the act of losing their hair and everything. I think it should be possible that would happen. People should not cry over that. Don't spend hours believing that Winston is your future. No. Very soon it will be cheaper. Yes,
yes. I mean, between $1,500 to $2,000.
Yes, very soon.
Do that.
Very soon it will be like BBL. There will be cheaper versions for people to be able to do. Yes.
Why do I worry? I mean, but this is the point. You see, there's a principle. There's a principle in Taoism that says, "Do not interfere with the flow of nature."
Yeah.
I am.
But if nature suits you, that's how you don't interfere.
Yes, nature suits me. I don't.
Yes. It is the people that nature does not suit you. So you have to talk to nature and discuss with nature.
You don't interfere with the flow of nature.
Yes,
that is nature.
Yeah, I get you. But you see, ordinarily, that would have been right. Yeah. But there are some people that if they don't interfere with nature, because body image to some is attached to their self-esteem. Yeah. That's why we get it wrong. So some people, the body image is attached to the self-esteem. So if it's connected, they have to do things not just for the body image, but so that to reflect in their self-esteem, so that they can live the normal lives. And I don't think we should prevent people from doing so. That's why I'm saying that if you have the ability and the competence in the future to do what they call hair transplant, I am not opposed to that. There are very frivolous ways of eccentricities that people engage in that I oppose, for example, like the more recent forms of the BBL they've been doing. Yeah, I think some of them. But some of them, if it's just to give you an inch and it helps you to live your best life, why not? For example, some people will say, he's saying that he disagrees. Yes, he disagrees. But you see,
is he part of those who now shave the side and side of their hair?
Yes. He's also doing side work. And see, these are people that they think that they'll ever have their hair. I'm warning them. I know that their time will come soon.
They can see their future.
I've seen pictures of my father at 40 and 45. Within that 5 years, he lost everything. It is very possible for everybody, including Rafi and Co, who have made it their duty to pretend that they have done some extraordinary work to keep their hair.
My father is over 70 years. He's
Yes.
not even bald.
Oh yes, but
it's not from the fatherland.
In the family, no one has a
But it's
bald
not from
head.
the fatherland.
we will try the right path.
So stop
But
wishing
George,
for something
it's
that
not
will
from the
never
motherline.
happen.
It's
My
possible that
mother's side as well, no one
you
has
may have
this.
reduced keratin in your diet, which will affect your hair growth, and it's possible. I'm seeing even signs anyway.
Continue
The
wishing.
front.
There's nothing there.
we can actually see that I can see the M-shaped drawing.
Yes. See, they fight it too. They fight it heavily, so they don't touch the hair. Some of us we are truthful to
I'm
ourselves.
just saying that no one in my family, both even extended, has it.
Now you are using genealogy. We are giving you the factors. You are saying genealogy.
If it's heredity or whatever they call
Yes.
it, or bloodline, both my mother's side and my father's side, no one. has
You
it.
saw all your mother's great-great-grandparents.
I've seen their pictures.
You don't know I can go into the lineage.
Don't mind him.
For you. I'll be there.
So now, I mean, first it was only women who cared about their body image. Now men too care. Now men are seriously connected too, so it's become a difficult industry. That's why the grooming industry, men are involved now, heavily.
Anyway, Mr. Aqua, I think
Yes.
that our time is up for today.
Yes.
Tomorrow, please make sure you join us tomorrow. on
And
the
some
Super
wear
Show.
wigs too, men nowadays.
Why would you, in heaven's name, want to do that? Well, my name is Winston Amor.
Afro will fit you. A wig afro. My name is Raymond Aqua.